Hi, my name is Tracey Dominguez, and I am in Dr. Balshaw's Organized and Consensual Crime. I wrote my paper on the Sicilian Mafia because it is the criminal organization that most interests me. It is basically a crime organization that started off in the early 1800s in Sicily, which is an island in the Mediterranean between North Africa and the Italian mainland. And the reason it began as a way for groups to band together and protect their family and friends from the foreign invaders that always ruled the land. Sicily was a violent and oppressive atmosphere, so self-reliance and solidarity among the people began to develop, and that is kind of the basis of what the mentality of the Sicilian Mafia is a secret society. The culture also viewed anyone outside the family and close friends as enemies, and this outlook became central to the development of the Mafia. The Mafia actually began as a way of life, and this began around the early 1500s to 1600s. There's a concept in the Mafia. It's called omerta, which means basically silence and to not divulge information, especially to the government. And they kept this within themselves for a long time. Also during that time, there important statements and landholders started handing over supervision to their estates to the gabelletos. These are landlords who eventually had power and influence over the people, and the main thing that they wanted to see is that these people had power and influence, and they used that to rule the people. This is about the time that the middle class started forming, and from that, the middle class came the what we know as the Mafia. And a lot of people say that a lack of a strong central government influenced the island, and that enabled the Mafia to grow and become part of the government. So it was basically a in-between. You had the people, then the Mafia, and then the government, and the Mafia became the go-between between the people and the government. So they had a lot of power within the government and with the people, and I think the government felt like that's the only way that they could really rule the land, because it had become so unstable and unruly. And a lot of the matters that were between the people were matters that the Mafia dealt with, so they were their own little like police for the people. And at that time, former landowners started moving away from the land, so they handed over a lot of their property to the care of former criminals who had respect with the people and actually had fear with the people. So when the landowners were far away, well, this enabled the Mafia to exhibit their will and promote their enterprise with the people, so they could extort money from people and set their own prices. And this is really when the roots of the Mafia started becoming prevalent in Sicily. And by the 1800s, the group became a pretty deadly and refined criminal enterprise, and then they also had a lot of influence within the political world. So, and this was all up until Mussolini took over and power, and a fascist regime began in Sicily. And Mussolini sent Cesare Mora, he was the head of the special forces, in to bring down the mafia, because he saw that the mafia challenged his authority, and he didn't like the disrespect that was shown by mafia leaders. And it was during this time that a lot of mafia people that were higher up in the organization got sent to either prison or they defected to America. And this is the time that really took hold in America. That the mafia started becoming prevalent in America. They just took their ways and brought them to America, and a lot of Sicilians saw America as an opportunity to use what they knew and bring it to the new land and start extorting over there. Mainly, they started off with the Black Hand over there, because and they mainly did that against other Sicilians or other immigrants. Eventually, they expanded their operation when Prohibition took place, which is a critical event in the history of the mafia, especially the Sicilian American mafia. Prohibition was a way for them to take advantage, to monopolize on the outlaw of selling of liquor. And they really became very wealthy and very influential in all arenas during this time. They started expanding their operations in America with alcohol, and they eventually started with robbery, kidnapping, and murder. And many immigrants found that the mafia was a viable way for them to get their families out of poverty, because they didn't come over with many skills, and that was one skill that they had, was the mafia ways, and they didn't see anything wrong with it. There was a respect and an admiration for mafia, so they weren't really viewed as criminals. Prohibition led the mafia to great wealth and influence, and this embedded them in the American society. They also started during this time to infiltrate the labor unions, which is a huge deal for the mafia. It gave them unprecedented control in certain things like the construction business. They would win construction bids, and the intimidation of other people in the business kept them out and kept them winning most of the bids. And they were saying during the peak time that the mafia basically did almost all the construction and shipping in the United States. This is about the time that State Kiefer, a senator from a senator from Tennessee, started broadcasting public hearings as he was trying to go after the mafia, and it didn't really stop the mafia. They didn't get a lot of prosecutions, but they did learn a lot, and the public learned a lot about what was going on with the mafia, and the American government could no longer deny their existence, because they were so secretive that they were sometimes viewed as not really even being, that they were kind of like a folklore. As the mafia grew, they become, more and more untouchable. However, during the 20th century, law enforcement agencies in America began to convict top-ranking gangsters. And this is about the time that they started breaking their code of silence, which is a huge deal, which showed that they were changing, that a lot of the old codes and old rules of being in mafia, like don't speak, don't talk about, don't comply with the government no matter what, was starting to, there was holes there. They were no longer adhering to old mafia ways that came over from Sicily. But even though this is happening, other mafia members, as soon as one is taken away, there's another one to replace them. So they began to grow, and during this time they still begin to grow, and they still adapt to our ever-changing society, which now is embedded in technology. What grew with honorable men and men that were really coming together, banding together to fight a foreign oppressor and to protect their families, it was now a murderous criminal threat throughout the world. And as technology advances, crime is becoming more and more prevalent. Instead of operating just here in America and in Sicily, they have expanded through the world. So it's a worldwide organization now, not just an American problem or an Italian problem. And some people say that now the new mafia is actually a cyber mafia, and that with the ever-changing technology that they're just growing. But really what it is it's the way it's always been, that crime will find a way when there's opportunities and people who are devious enough to take advantage of the weak or opportunities, whether they be legal or illegal. There'll always be a criminal organization, such as the Sicilian Mafia. Thank you.